two bills we're going to be hearing will be Chairman Bennett's bills, and I will just give a quick synopsis of what the bills will entail, but these are House Bills 5131 and House Bill 5138. House Bill 5131 is an act relating to food and drugs, single-use plastic straws. This act would prohibit a food service establishment from providing a consumer with a single-use plastic straw unless the consumer requests such a straw. The first and second violation of this statute would result in a notice of violation, and any subsequent violations would be punishable by a fine of $25, not to exceed $300 annually. And the second bill, H5138, is an act relating to food and drugs, disposable food service containers. This act would prohibit a covered establishment from preparing, selling, processing, or providing food or beverages in or on a disposable food service containers that is composed in whole or in part of polystyrene foam. So we have a list of people that's going to testify. I'm just going to grab the list, but just as a reminder, for those that are going to be verbally testifying, please do not read from your written testimony. We can all get that off the website. And number two, please keep it to 2 minutes if you can. We have another bill with a significant amount of people that is going to be testifying. So if we can keep it as concise as possible, that would be much appreciated for the committee here. So we have coming up on House Bill 5131 and 5138. Who is our first? All right, we're going to have Kevin Budres from Conservation Law Foundation. Good afternoon, Kevin.
Hello, this is Kevin.
Hi, Kevin. This is Bob Phillips from the House Environment and Natural Resource Committee. You are going to be testifying on both 5131 and 5138, so we'll have you have the floor.
Great. Thank you, Vice Chair Phillips, and thank you, members of the committee. My name is Kevin Budres, and I'm a staff attorney with Conservation Law Foundation, or CLF. CLF supports both House Bill 5131 and 5138. And we are grateful that Chair Bennett has once again sponsored legislation that would limit single-use plastic straws and polystyrene foam food packaging. Many of you have heard me speak previously about the dangers of plastics production and plastics waste. The vast majority of plastics are sourced from fossil fuels. And because of that, plastics pollute at every stage in their life cycle. Whether it's the extraction of fossil fuels, refining those fuels into plastic resins, packaging our food and products in plastic, or plastics in the waste stream and in our environment, all of these have a significant impact on public health and our climate. Pollutants released at each stage of this life cycle damage our climate and can cause cancer and a host of harmful health effects. House Bill 5131 is an important step in turning off the plastics tap. Millions, if not billions, of plastic straws are ending up in the ocean every single year. And because plastic straws are made out of such flimsy plastic, they easily break down into microplastics. And when microplastics degrade in the ocean, they release a host of greenhouse gases, including methane and ethylene, and they can interfere with the ocean's ability to absorb carbon, further damaging our climate. It's important to note here that House Bill 5131 strikes the right balance when it comes to single-use plastic straws. If a customer needs one, they can request it. But straws are not going to be automatically handed out with every beverage under this bill. And importantly, the bill does not allow restaurants to set up straw dispensers instead of providing straws only when asked. Those big plastic straw dispensers only exacerbate the problem here because they make it easy to just grab a handful of straws without thinking about it. Dispensers cannot be part of the solution here. The balance in the bill, as written, is right. It helps keep straws out of our lives and out of the environment. CLF also supports House Bill 5138. Polystyrene foam food containers are a particularly toxic and dangerous form of plastic. Styrene is one of the building blocks of polystyrene, and styrene is a known carcinogen and can also cause anemia and reproductive damage. Styrene is emitted from facilities that manufacture polystyrene foam, and it can leach from polystyrene foam, like foam food containers, like beverage containers and takeout containers, into foods and beverages. And yet, the world is producing more than 14 million tons of polystyrene foam each year. Here in Rhode Island, we're throwing away about 4,000 tons of polystyrene foam each year. And what's worse is that polystyrene foam food containers are entirely unnecessary. There are recyclable and even better reusable alternatives that we can and should rely on. And I just want to make a quick note here about some continued misleading claims that we hear from the plastics and containers industries, that disposable containers are somehow safer or more sanitary than reusable containers, especially during the pandemic. But study after study have shown now that disposable containers like those made from polystyrene do not protect us from COVID or other pathogens. To the contrary, the health impacts of plastics production, especially on those that are forced to live near fracking wells and petrochemical plants, are severe, and they only exacerbate the risks of COVID. CLF supports both House Bill 5131 and 5138. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your testimony, Kevin. Is there any questions for this witness? Hearing none. Kevin, you have a great weekend. Thank you for testifying.
Thank you so much.
Our next person to speak is going to be Meg Kerr from the Audubon Society. Meg, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much.
Very good. The floor is yours.
Thank you. My name is Meg Kerr. I am the Director of Policy at the Audubon Society of Rhode Island, and I'm here to speak briefly in support of H5131, single-use plastic straws, and H5138, disposable food service containers. Audubon and our members have worked for decades to eliminate plastics in the environment, and both of these bills are an important step forward. I wanted to say one thing in particular about the food service container bill. In previous years at other hearings, we have heard that you can recycle the polystyrene foam that you have gotten your food in. And I did a quick look. You can't put it into your recycling. It's not accepted at the MRF as part of your single stream recycling. But there is a special program at the Johnston Resource Recovery Facility where you could drop it off. And you can also mail your polystyrene to the nearest collection site. And on that website, no site is listed in Rhode Island where you could mail your waste. And it does say that if you were to mail your polystyrene in, you would be responsible for the postage. And I know it's not that far to get to Johnston, but this is Rhode Island after all, and most of us don't like to drive very far. I just don't think many people would be willing to drive up to Johnston to drop off their polystyrene. So people don't, and they dispose of it. It ends up in the environment, and it harms birds and wildlife, and we are concerned about it. So we support that bill. And the straws also end up in the environment. In past hearings, we've talked about how so much plastic ends up in nests of birds, and the straws are no exception. They end up in bird nests, and they harm the birds. It may seem like a small step to take to ban or just to ask first for the plastic straws, but it's an important first step, and we urge you to take it. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Meg. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, I'm only going to make one comment to you, Meg. I remember 2 years ago, I know we had a discussion 2 years ago. I did a petition at a middle school in one of the cities, and we showed films and little clips on what the single-use straws and some of the plastic going into the oceans and that were, and a lot of the students felt so heavy about this that they signed a petition. Out of 500 students, over 300 of them signed the petition to say, we need to pass these bills. So it also
We agree.
it also affects the younger students too.
Yeah, thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Meg. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. The next person up is going to be Greg Garrett. Mr. Garrett, are you there?
I am here.
All right, the floor is yours. You're going to be testifying on Bill H5131.
Members of the committee, my name is Greg Garrett. I live in Providence. I used to serve on the state litter task force, and there's litter everywhere. And the reason for it is we have so many things that are so easy to just throw on the ground. Straws are one of them. And, you know, asking people asking a service person for a straw is not hard. You know, it's just don't make it automatic. People will get in the habit of carrying their own. And it's really not that difficult for a store or a restaurant to adapt to a situation where people are not automatically handed a straw. I know I started trying to not have straws, you know, well, way back when I used to go to restaurants. I would carry my own, and they'd just give you one when they came over with it. It was like, what was the point? So asking would be a good thing. The other thing is we don't need all of these extra plastics and chemicals and all these other things in the environment from all these different directions. You know, we're going to do a lot better if we just leave the petrochemicals alone and leave much more of the oil in the ground. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, Mr. Garrett, thank you very much. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Chairman Bennett has just showed up, so I'm going to give him a couple of minutes to talk about his bills, and then we'll get back to the next people on the list.
Thank you very much. I don't know what's already been said about the bill, but I just want to tell you a little story about the straw itself. It's like a little boat. Somebody drops it on the ground, it rains, it follows the grade to the nearest lowest point, which is usually a sewer or a stream, a river, pond, or our ocean. It gets into the system, and it's there for a very, very long time. I've seen pictures of sea turtles with straws stuck in their nose. I've seen pictures of what came out of whales, and a lot of it's straws. They clog up our grates. I've been asked, what about dispensers? I think that would add to the problem. You know, people, you see them in you see them in the donut shops, and they'll grab, instead of one napkin, they grab like 20 of them to keep in their car. I think that's pretty much what would happen with dispensers and the straws. People would be taking them, putting them in their car, dropping them on the ground. When it rains, they're going to step on it, it sticks to their shoe, they get out, there goes your boat down the stream. I think this is an important bill. We're not banning the straw, but we just want to give people a chance not to use them. And if you ask for a straw, you'll get one. And I don't think that's a big ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Bennett. Any questions? Representative McEntee.
I had a question about your other bill, because we're doing both right now, right?
I'm sorry,
The other one, 5138, if you want to talk about that, and then I'll ask my question about the polystyrene.
Yes. The styrofoam. That's another beautiful little thing that we can do without. This is a story I told last year when I ran this bill. We were tuna fishing off of Block Island. Beautiful day. And we see some activity off to the south of the boat. So we motored over there, and somebody had broke their styrofoam cooler and threw it out. And that's what the bait fish were doing. They were eating those little beads that come off the styrofoam. And, you know, the bigger fish come in, they eat, you know, the fish that have ate the styrofoam, or the fish dies because it can't digest it and eliminate it. It's just, you see them on the side of roads where people just throw them out their windows. The animals smell the food that was in them, and they tend to eat the styrofoam. And they can't pass it, and they die. It's people say, well, what are we going to use? Aluminum foil if we need to, that's recyclable. Cardboard covers. Same with the straws. I've got a number of straws made out of avocado, made out of, the seeds, excuse me, made out of pasta, and just regular paper straws, and we have to stop depending on the easy sources. That's what our society does. We go for the easiest source out there. And like all the bills we heard tonight, they're all very important bills. And if we don't make moves on these bills, then we're going to be handing our grandchildren a heck of a place. It's going to be a huge dump. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I was looking at the exemptions that appear on page 2, and you have the emergency one. I guess I'm looking at number 2 and 3, especially number 3. Are we still back at, I know over the years we've discussed what do you do about packaging meats in markets like Hamburg? Are we still going to allow for that styrofoam tray that they put them in? Because it does say, as an exemption, sell at retail food or beverages in and on disposable food service containers that is composed in whole or in part of polystyrene foam that the covered establishment purchases prepackaged at wholesale. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out what we are allowing in these exemptions.
That's a good question. There's alternative uses. If we've exempt them, I don't know why. I don't remember that part of it. The styrofoam that your steak comes on, your hamburger comes on, that's mostly done for contamination reasons. They wrapped it in plastic, and again, that's the simple way out. That's the simple way to do it, the most cost-effective way to do it.
Yeah.
But, God, they used to wrap our fish and chips in paper.
Yeah, newspaper, right?
Yeah. And I just think that we have to put these bills on the table and look at what they're doing to our environment. I'm very lucky. I have a great-grandson that was just born 8 months ago, and he's full of life, and I don't want to leave him a terrible world that's filled with pollution and PFAS and air pollution, and, Rep. Carson's bill is going to address a lot of that. We have to clean up now, because the Earth's not going to keep waiting for us. It's going to say, well, look what's happening now, with the weather and all that stuff. But there are exemptions.
Yeah, no, I like the bills. I'm very supportive of your bills, both of them. I think they're great bills. I was just wondering exactly what we are allowing here.
Yeah, it's in the bill.
Yeah.
And you can read it online, like I said, on the documents.
I'm reading it. And I'm wondering if it still includes that tray that's under the hamburger or the steak. And I don't know if that's what they're talking about.
Seems like it.
It does seem like it.
It's what?
It seems like it's.
It could still be in there. I know we talk about that every year, like why do we continue with that? But
Yeah.
maybe one of these people can explain it to us.
On the styrofoam bill, I plan on a sub-A on it, to have the effective date to January 1st, 2022, instead of the effective date upon passage. Because a lot of restaurants during COVID is doing a lot of business with, takeout, and they bought large inventories. And if we don't let them use up that inventory, they take the big loss on top of a loss. So I think if I give them till 2022, they should be able to get rid of their inventory. That's it.
That's a great point. We don't want to put any more of a burden on businesses as the COVID has already decimated so many of them. So I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Chairman Bennett? Hearing none. The next person to testify is going to be Jonathan Barad from Clean Water Action. We'll just wait for a couple of seconds till he gets on. Good afternoon, Mr. Barad.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. You have testimony on both bills, H5131 and H5138. Please proceed.
Sure, thank you so much, and thank you, Chair Bennett, and members of the committee. My name is John Berard, and I am the Rhode Island State Director for Clean Water Action. I speak today on behalf of our nearly 20,000 members here in Rhode Island, and we support both H5131 and H5138, and we urge the committee to move passage. And, Rep. Bennett just mentioned that people need to come face-to-face with the problem, and were we in person, you'd all be looking at the jars of microplastic pollution that I always bring to these hearings to come face-to-face with the problem, so consider yourselves spared from having to do that tonight. But it is a striking reminder of the scope of this issue. Briefly, I want to focus my remarks on the concept of source reduction as the solution to this problem of plastic pollution that we're talking about. And the reason we need to look there is because the downstream end-of-pipe solutions have not worked. In general, recycling and education programs have proven to do very little to reduce litter and plastic pollution and increase recycling. And when we talk about straws and foam, upstream is literally the only place we can address the issue. First, on straws, plastic straws are not recyclable and are, in fact, a contaminant of municipal recycling streams. They're designed to be used one time and then discarded. We've all seen what happens to them. They end up everywhere. They're ingested by marine life and used by birds to make nests. They get mixed in with organics and end up in compost. Clean Water Action has a program called Rethink Disposable, and among the first best practices we suggest to restaurants that we work with is to institute an ask-first policy for all single-use food serviceware, including straws. By making this simple best practice policy, restaurants are able not only to reduce their impact on the environment, but also to reduce costs for themselves. This has proven to be the case with every single one of the hundreds of businesses across the country we've worked with, including several here in Rhode Island. This bill codifies that best practice, and there are no downsides to this type of plastic reduction policy, as my colleagues before me have said. On polystyrene, polystyrene is a particularly problematic product. We know the problem that it creates when it gets into the environment. Rep. Bennett just talked at length about it, and he's seen what he's seen with his own eyes. And we know that it's one of the most toxic types of plastics out there. End-of-life management of the product is problematic too. Meg Kerr from the Audubon Society talked a lot about the recycling program that we have, making quotes with my hand. As someone who actually bags my foam and takes it all to the central landfill to be disposed of, I can tell you how inconvenient that is, and the average Rhode Islander does not do that. I can guarantee it. I try to get my parents to do it, and they don't. So, we talk a lot about, convenience to the end user and the customer, and that is one of the most inconvenient ways to get rid of a problem product that we have. What's more is the foam that's collected by that recycling program must be clean, which excludes the type of foam packaging, soiled food serviceware that's covered here in this bill. Lastly, I just want to reiterate the point that my colleague Kevin made, that there is no evidence that has been found that single-use disposable products are any safer than reusable products that have been washed and sanitized. The CDC has found the risk of the transmission of COVID through food and food serviceware to be very low, and recommends restaurants and food establishments continue to adhere to existing hygiene and food safety practices as the best way to eliminate risk. There are other less harmful products out there for both of these, as well as we should be turning to reusable products as a way to reduce plastic pollution as well. So these bills take different approaches, but they both do the work to reduce plastic pollution at its source. We support both of them, and we urge passage, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Barad. Is there any questions for Mr. Barad on either of these two bills? Seeing none, thank you very much, Mr. Barad. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Same to you.
Thank you. We are going from Clean Water Action to Clean Ocean Access. Next person to testify will be Dave Mclaughlin. Mr. Mclaughlin, are you there? Good afternoon, Mr. McLaughlin. Mr. McLaughlin? You're there? We can't hear you if you're there. Not Rep. McLaughlin. Thanks, Jimmy. Okay, so we're going to jump to, all right, we'll hold off on Mr. McLaughlin for a couple of minutes, and we'll go to Mr. Jed Thorpe. Mr. Thorpe?
Good afternoon, Mr. Vice Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. As you know, Save the Bay's mission is to improve and protect Narragansett Bay. And as such, we are very concerned about all forms of pollution going into the bay. And one of the fastest growing problems that we've been facing has been plastic pollution, which is a problem globally, but also very much a problem right here in Rhode Island. As we've talked about before, our volunteers participate in shoreline cleanups all around the bay, and they remove thousands of plastic items every year, including plastic bottles, bottle caps, bags, and balloons. And last year alone, in our mostly one-day international coastal cleanup event, volunteers removed almost 5,000 plastic straws and stirs from Rhode Island beaches. Again, that was a mostly one-day event. Plastic straws are most certainly an environmental problem in Rhode Island, and one very much deserving of action by the General Assembly. We believe that this bill is an important piece of the broader effort to reduce plastic pollution. It's a common sense bill. It doesn't ban plastic straws, although you could certainly make a strong case to do so, as non-plastic alternatives, as others have testified to tonight, are already readily available. The bill simply states that establishments should not provide consumers with a piece of future waste unless they explicitly ask for it. We also support House Bill 5138, and we urge you to pass both bills. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thorpe. We have a question from Representative Carson.
Actually, I have a comment, and I was waiting for both Jed's comments as well as Clean Ocean Access comments, because we've come to rely on hundreds of volunteers to clean up all this waste. We really have. Irresponsible people are just throwing this stuff all over. And as he said, 5,000 straws in one day. That took a tremendous amount of people power to do that. And I want to thank them for doing that. But I also want to ask us to really look in the mirror and recognize that we should stop doing this. Because if these volunteers don't do this, there's going to be a real mess out there. So it's always disturbed me that we just take for granted that it's going to be cleaned up because of some team of volunteers on Earth Day. And I think we should think about that long and hard. Thank you.
Well, for these people that want to volunteer too, they could utilize their time better volunteering for another project instead of this one here. Representative Mclaughlin.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I'm wondering if you could answer a question for me. I don't know whether it would be pertaining to the chemist, but is there a resin component in these plastics? In the definition of plastics, you have soft plastic, you have hard plastic straws, which are very durable, and I believe they can be recycled. Could you answer that question for me?
Unfortunately, Representative, I'm a political scientist by training, not a chemist, and so I'm unable to answer that question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions for this? Chairman Bennett.
Thank you. Representative Mclaughlin, the straws, if everybody would use receptacles and throw them in the trash, but like Representative Carson said, there's some people that just are unscrupulous, and I don't believe the straws are recyclable because they don't fit the machinery at the recycling centers. They fall through and they end up in the landfill. And but I mean, I don't know how many of them get recycled. I imagine there's a way to do it. I know we sell a lot of our plastics to other people, other states and other companies. But I think the straws give them a problem over at, I may be wrong on that. But
Chairman, the
pretty sure.
reason I brought this up, okay, plastic can be recycled, okay?
Some of it.
You have to define what can be recycled and what can't be recycled. In reference to hard plastic, most of your new cars are made up out of hard plastic.
Yeah, but nobody throws a new car in a river. You know what I mean?
I know, but what,
I wasn't being sarcastic, but I'm saying the
You
different
take-
types. This is a small
you
cylinder.
take 1,000,000 straws, you probably make one car.
That's right, that's right.
But what I'm basically saying is hard plastic because in the question I asked before, the resin content that is used, in plastic to mold it and that, basically, that's why I wanted to speak with a chemist on that. Everyone has, at one time or another, utilized hard plastic straws, okay? And you can't break them. They come pre-formed, pre-shaped, and these, I believe, can be recycled. My question is, can they be recycled? So if we can get a chemist down, or someone in the industry, maybe they can answer that question. Thank you.
Well, I'm sure throughout the day, we get a lot of people testifying on the next bill. Somebody may be able to answer that, I'm not sure. Maybe somebody that's coming up now. But it's a great question. It makes you think.
Plastic, believe it or not, he's talking about plastic, like you have Bondo in a can that they use in body shops.
Yes.
That's made out of talcum powder.
Yeah, it's a resin, yeah.
And you add a resin to it, that's where you get a hard plastic. So, just a little information.
All right. Anybody else have questions of that right now? All right. Representative Knight has joined us. Representative Knight, we want to be marked in the affirmative for holding all bills, sir.
Yes, please.
So ordered. Next person, do we have Mr. Mclaughlin on the phone? Okay. Next one is Clean Ocean Access, Mr. David Mclaughlin. Good afternoon, Mr. Mclaughlin. Are you there?
That right now. All right. Representative Knight has joined us. Representative Knight.
We can't hear you. I don't know what's going on.
Can you hear me now?
That's better.
All right, great.
Proceed.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Bennett and members of the committee. My name is Dave Mclaughlin. I am the Executive Director of Clean Ocean Access. We're a local environmental organization primarily doing work in Newport County, but certainly caring about the whole state of Rhode Island. We certainly express our gratitude for these bills to be introduced, and we support passage of H5131 for the single-use plastic straws and H5138 related to disposable food service containers. I want to thank Representative Carson as well as for Save the Bay for calling out the effort of volunteers. Certainly, Clean Ocean Access has benefited from tens of thousands of volunteers over the last 15 years, performing over 15.
Are you still there, Mr. McLaughlin? We seem to maybe have lost him. I don't know. Yeah, we'll go to the next one, then we'll try to get him back and see if we can get a better connection on him. Yep, so Mr. Martijan, okay. The next person, we'll try to get back to Mr. McLaughlin, but the next person up is Mr. Terry Martijan, and he is against the bill. But Mr. Martijan, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Vice Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Terrence Martijan, and I represent the theater owners of the Wingers, otherwise known as Tone. We represent most of the movie theaters in the state, and we respectfully oppose 5131. For the record, although we allow the intent and efforts of this Chairman Bennett and the committee to remove harmful waste from our environment, the banning of single-use plastic straws, except upon request without a viable alternative, creates significant problems for many of our patrons, especially children, disabled, and the elderly who are dependent on straws. We do not operate like a full or quick service restaurant, our customers typically purchase their drinks when they enter the premises not from a concession stand, but they walk long distances to a dark auditorium, at times up flight of stairs, finally making their way between rows of seats filled with patrons. We offer large drinks with ice to last through a long movie, and we provide lids and straws to avoid spills on our patrons, their neighbors, or on the auditorium floors. If our customers forget to ask for a straw, they will either have to retrace their steps to the concession stand or remove the drink lid to consume their drink that could ultimately lead to an unnecessary spill, causing a safety hazard, especially in the case of children. Prohibiting plastic straws unless they are requested by the customer is not practical for self-service concession stands. In the past few years, many theaters have invested a significant amount of capital converting portions of their concession area to self-service, where there is no theater staff present to honor a request for a straw. This creates a problem for the theater and also a major inconvenience for the customer. Therefore, we respectfully propose that the committee allow for straws to be provided from the self-service dispenser. And we ask that the bill be amended on page 1915 to reflect that. We do share the concerns of preserving our environment. We, as an industry, continue to explore alternatives to plastic straws, but so far have found that paper does not hold up in the drink for long periods of time, and other options are currently cost prohibitive. We currently challenge our suppliers to find a cost-effective solution. Until we find a solution, it should be noted that virtually all of our trash is disposed in receptacles throughout the theater, and making it highly unlikely to end up outdoors, oceans, rivers, or streams. Movie theaters operate on a very small margin, and our increase in the cost of goods does not occur in a vacuum. We are also dealing with the increase of other mandatory costs, such as wages, rents, insurance, real estate taxes, and utilities. This mandate would be a further hardship on theaters. For your information, COVID-19 has been extremely hard on the movie theater industry throughout the country, with long closures and a significant reduction in the percentage of allowable patrons when allowed to operate. We are now at 40% max. Excuse me a minute. For these reasons, we would ask that if you are going to pass the bill, that the effective date be January 1, 2022. Well, we think it's important that we have that inclusion of that language of a self-service dispenser until we can find an alternative, suitable alternative that is not as costly as what we have available as alternatives today. For these reasons, we are opposed to the bill as presently drafted, and I will stand ready to answer any questions that may be asked. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Martijan. I believe that Chairman Bennett has already said that he's going to be looking for a survey to push the effective date out to January 1st of 2022. So I think that you just said that that was one of your concerns. Are there any questions for Mr. Martijan? Seeing none. Mr. Martijan, have a great weekend. Thank you for testifying.
Thank you, Vice Chairman.
We're going to try one more time for Mr. Mclaughlin. Mr. McLaughlin, are you there again?
Yes, I am. Hopefully this works.
Yeah, I think somebody's been trying to sabotage your phone so you can't testify. I'm not sure.
I hope that's not the case.
All right, proceed, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair Bennett and members of the committee. My name is Dave McLaughlin. I am the Executive Director of Clean Ocean Access. We're a local environmental organization, predominantly working in Newport County, but certainly caring and working with across the whole state. We certainly urge passage of H5131 for single-use straws, as well as for H5138 for disposable food service containers. I want to thank Representative Carson for calling out the heroic effort of volunteers. Certainly what Save the Bay is doing with the International Coastal Cleanup is amazing, but that certainly is not the solution for the long-term efforts here. I also want to broadly agree with Chairman Bennett. I'm also not a chemist, but certainly the information I have received over the years is that the plastic in straws could be recycled, but it's the collections, it's the technology that prohibits it from being something that could be recycled. So it's basically deemed as a non-recyclable item. Both of these bills touch upon the concept of convenience, but I just want to express that there is extreme effort and difficulty of proceeding forward with using these convenient products. They're both made out of fossil fuels, and that is a limited resource that we really need to use in a responsible way, as opposed to keeping the spigot on of using all these single-use plastic materials with no end. Just brief remarks about straws. Besides the nearly 17,000 that we've collected over the coastline in the last 7 years, I really want to talk about from a healthy environment, economic point of view. Is if we send the right message to the state that straws are banned / on request, you're going to see tremendous savings for businesses, and that's going to allow them to either have higher profitability or pass that savings on as higher wages to employers. I don't expect them to be saving lots of money, but we're talking about hundreds of dollars, if not a couple $1,000s a year, that they won't need to spend on these unnecessary items. They still have the ability to provide them if customers need them. But on the foam side, I really want to address it more from an environmental point of view. And the concern is, despite the thousands of materials that we found, the whole problem with foam is how rapidly it breaks down and how incredibly difficult and if really impossible it is to do any type of remediation and collection of foam. You can pick up a piece of a straw on the beach or a bottle, but when it comes to foam deteriorating, once that happens, it's gone, but it's there forever. So we really have got to focus on not leaving this problem for the next generation. We are in a position right now to be a leader for these environmental issues, and I commend the effort of the General Assembly of moving this forward. And again, I offer our assistance to help make this happen, and I express my gratitude for introducing these bills. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mclaughlin. We made it through this time. Any questions?
Hallelujah.
Any questions for Mr. Mclaughlin, please? Hearing none, Mr. Mclaughlin, thanks again for your testimony. You have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to close out on House Bill 5131 by saying that we have written testimony against by Jillian Chin, in favor of by the Conservation Law Foundation, Clean Ocean Access, Jennifer Whiting, Kate Whittingham, Megan Allard, Curry Tulamtsis, Brianna Petraka, Nature Conservancy, Audubon Society, Jonathan Barad, and against we have Esteban Tomeo, Gianna Solitro, Theater Owners of New England, and Christopher Carlozzi. And that's going to finish the testimony just on H5131. We have more witnesses on H5138. The next one up, I believe, is Omar Terry from the American Chemistry Council. Mr. Terry.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Terry. You're before the Environment and Natural Resources Committee on House Bill H5138. Proceed, please.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Omar Terry. I'm the director of the Plastic Food Service Packaging Group with the American Chemistry Council. I understand you have a lot of people testifying, so I will definitely try to keep this brief. As many of you know, restaurants are facing a tough time right now, and one of the primary reasons and resources that they're able to continue staying afloat is food service, particularly polystyrene food service. One of the reasons for that is because of economies for scale. Cents matter. Are there alternatives? Yes. However, those alternatives, even if they cost a cent or 2 cents more, stack up when you're buying large inventories. And so because of that, we really strongly believe that this is the wrong time to be trying to move out a ban, even if an amendment is inserted that would push it to January of 2022. We don't know how long it's going to take to get people vaccinated. We don't know how long it's going to take to, really, quote, get back to normal. And so we really strongly want to suggest holding off on any of this type of legislation. However, there are solutions that are coming to bear in advanced recycling. This is a technology that is able to recycle plastics, polystyrene, straws, what have you. And we understand that polystyrene specifically has had a tough time when it comes to mechanical recycling. But with advanced recycling, you're able to take plastics and break them down to their chemical components, siphon out the contaminant. So in this case, a polystyrene foam clamshell with General Tso's chicken, you can take out that clamshell, that contaminant, and then you're able to get the clean monomer and that the plastic is derived from, and you're able to get that plastic again. So we're able to now produce that circular advanced recycling technology, and and frankly just recycle plastics. This is taking place around the country. There are locations that are already doing it, such as in Oregon. There's a company called Agilix that is recycling polystyrene foam out there, and they're able to take cups from concert halls and recycle them back into cups. There's a company called Ineos Styrolutions that is building a 100-ton-a-day polystyrene foam advanced recycling plant in Illinois. And there's also advanced recycling that's taking place in Atlanta, Georgia area, where they're taking not only polystyrene, but several different types of plastics. They're converting that into what the industry calls feedstock or chemical feedstocks, and they're shipping that to Shell, so that Shell can thereby ship that to their customers to have post-consumer recycled content. And this is being driven by several states who are passing legislation in support of advanced recycling. To date, there are 9 states that have passed this: Florida, Wisconsin, Georgia, Iowa, Tennessee, Texas, Ohio, Illinois, and most recently Pennsylvania. So this technology is coming to bear. States are picking up this technology as well, and we would like to have Rhode Island join the family and to look at alternatives other than a ban to support sustainable and environmental benefits for all without hurting the economics of the people who would be most hurt by this. And with that, I will end and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Terry. Chairman Bennett has a question for you.
Hi. This is the...
Good afternoon.
Your advanced recycling, is it pyrolyzation, incineration?
So advanced recycling is an umbrella term that we use for several different types of technologies.
Hello?
Mr. Chairman, absolutely not incineration. The reason it's not incineration is because this is a closed system where there is no air. That is a critical component to understand, right? So what advanced recycling does is it takes a solid, it does heat it to extreme levels that solid turns into a gas, but it stays in a tube. It does not escape into the atmosphere. And then we separate out that contaminant and then we cool it into a liquid that we can thereby turn back into a plastic resin, whether that be polystyrene foam or if that's polypropylene. But the key component is that this is an insular system. It does not escape into the atmosphere, and there's no incineration. So, but pyrolysis is a component. You also, there's technologies under advanced recycling that use solvents. There's also technologies that utilize microwaves, radio waves to break this down. So it is an umbrella term for several different technologies being brought to bear.
I understand the process. We're going through that now with a med recycler plant coming into part of our state. There is an end product, right? The end product being ash?
Yeah. Oh, so there is. So the end product is the feedstock, which would be either plastics, a fuel, or it would be waxes, or it would be that chemical feedstock. What you're talking about is, an ancillary as a byproduct. And yes, there is some char. There's no environmental concerns with char.
And how much of that goes in the landfill?
The feedstock or the char?
The char.
Well, I do not know yet, but the amount of char that is developed is actually very minuscule, and they're trying to come up with alternative ways to utilize the char, such as using that in asphalt regeneration. So if we're able to utilize that byproduct, then it would be nothing. But to date, I'd have to come back to you with specific numbers. I don't think much at all. There's just not enough. There's not enough char byproduct for it to really be of concern.
Well, like I said, we are going through a process now with the med recycler, and there's 7% goes into the landfill, and the other part of it goes into making concrete or asphalt, which eventually breaks down, goes into our system. But I understand you're testifying, and I don't need to give you a hard time. But we are experiencing the paralysis here in Rhode Island, whether we're going to use it or not. Thank you.
Representative
Thank you, Mr.
Tyson.
Chairman.
We have another question from Representative Tyson.
I just wanted to make a comment, and I made the same comment, I think, last year in this committee. I was not a member then, but there was a discussion of burning this stuff. And we can debate what incineration means, and we probably will. And the other thing is that our constituents are not asking for these products. They're asking us to eliminate these products. I mean, let's be clear about what's going on here. They're not going to want them and then burn them. They're not going to see that as a solution. The testimony we hear from average Rhode Islanders is, please reduce these and eliminate these things. I mean, that's what people want.
Well, with respect, Representative, we actually do have a definition of incineration.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes, not a problem. We are hearing you. Any other questions for this witness? I'm looking up at the computer screen too, and everybody at one time. Hearing none. Mr. Terry, thank you very much for your testimony. You have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great day. Enjoy your weekend.
And the next person up, I believe, is Susan Addy. And she is in favor of it. Miss Addy. Hello.
Hello, this is Susan Addy, Middletown.
All right. The floor is yours on the Committee on Environment and Natural Resources. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank first Chair Bennett for proposing these bills, and I'd like to address 5138, but if I can also just make a mention to 5131 as well. I'd also like to thank Representative Carson for bringing up the fact of the volunteer hours that are being used across the state, other places as well, in waste removal. So again, my name is Susan. I work as a nature educator. I've been doing this since 1970, teaching children, adults about the waste problem with polystyrene. I've been teaching about the removal, about the safe recycling processes available. And I've also been working in areas from along the coastline. I've been quite lucky in my career, working from the coast of Maine down to Florida, as well as in the high Arctic, the Norwegian coast, Scotland, and also in Antarctica. So my nature education has been globally. While I have been working to educate people, I've also been involved in organizing and removing plastic waste from beaches and from the ocean. One of the things that constantly shows up is our straws, plastic straws, and also styrofoam takeaway containers. We have found styrofoam in microbead form in Antarctica. Now, there is no styrofoam brought into Antarctica, and the closest source for a city or a town to generate this waste is 800 miles away. The next closest source is 2,700 miles away. So when you use something in Providence, if it ends up into the stream and goes down into the ocean, and we, the volunteers, don't get it picked up, it can continue on moving through the ocean ecosystem, ending up in a food source, potential food source for people. It has shown up already in the digestive tract of polar bears and of penguins. So it's not going to decompose, it's not going to disappear. It may not be visible to you, but it is still there. And it's of huge concern. Every community across the world, but we can start with our community here. As I said, I've worked in education about these problems since 1970. And it's clear that education and recycling do not work. We have to stop it at its source. Again, Chair Bennett, I really appreciate your passion. Representative Carson, I know you are fully behind this as well, and I thank you all for addressing this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Are there any questions for this witness? Seeing none. Thank you, Susan. You have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Next up is Kerr, and I apologize ahead of time if I butcher your last name, but it looks like Curie Tolumpsis. Still trying to. More technical problem. All right, we'll go to some technical issues, I guess, on getting this person testifying. So we'll go to Joan Milas. Okay, will be just a couple of seconds. New technology that we have to do, and we're all getting used to this, even the people that are running the board, to try and get the people that want to speak before the committees. So we'll just be a couple of seconds. All right, I guess we're still having some more technical difficulties. We're still trying to get them through. We have somebody working on it. So we'll just, while we're waiting on the next people to testify, we'll just talk about the written testimony. People that have given written testimony. We have the American Chemistry Council against it, Jillian Chin against it, Esteban Tamayo says it's against it, but I'm hearing that might not be true, but people can read the testimony from Esteban online. Jennifer Whiting is in favor of it. Kate Whittingham is in favor of it. Megan Allard is in favor of it. Brianna Petraka is in favor of it. Gianna Salitro is in favor of it. Anna Browder is in favor of it. Nature Conservancy is in favor of it. Pam Berkeley is in favor of it. The Audubon Society is in favor of it. Jonathan Barad is in favor of it. Joan Milas is against it, and Christopher Carlozzi is against it. And I believe we're still working on getting the last two people. All right? We're trying to get Miss Joan Milas on. Oh, sounds like we might have her. Joan, are you there?
I'm here.
You're there. We finally got the technical difficulties done.
Okay, okay, sorry. I
You're-
was talking to another witness somehow.
Yeah, well, no, you're testifying on House Bill 5138. We'll give you the
Yes,
floor
that's-
right now, Joan.
All right, well, thank you, Chairman Phillips. Yes, again, it's Joan Milas on behalf of the American Chemistry Council. Thank you very much. We are opposed to the bill as drafted. But there's one piece, I mean, you have plenty of testimony, but there's one piece that I just wanted to bring to your attention. So I've been doing ACC for over 20 years. And Representative Carson brought up a fabulous point on volunteers and what it takes. As you're going through the legislative process and you're debating your budget, one of the things that is lacking in 2021 is the funding to the departments on education. And when we first started, ACC was instrumental in green bin, blue bin, how many years ago? And how did they do that? They did that with coloring books around the country to give kids the opportunity to understand what it means to recycle and separate your plastics, etc. They used to have a plastics van that went to schools. And when you're deliberating on your budget, you may want to think about putting money back into education programs as well. It's not necessarily the ban of the product, but it's teaching the behavior on what's right and wrong, and especially with children. So if you ever want any of those resources or those discussions, ACC is happy to have those as well. But thank you very much, and ACC and I and are always here to help and answer any questions and reach out to us anytime. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joan. Are there any questions for Ms. Milas? Seeing none, you have a wonderful weekend, Joan. Hope to hear and see you soon.
Thank you to you and everyone as well. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to try and get Curie back. Good afternoon, Curie.
Hi, yes.
We finally got a hold of you. Thank you. Sorry about all the delay and all the technical problems.
No problem.
I tried to pronounce your last name, but if you can pronounce it, I apologize for probably butchering it.
Oh, that's fine. It's Lumpsis Tulumsis if you're using the very Greek pronunciation.
Okay. So you may proceed.
Okay, thank you so much. And thank you, Chairman Bennett and members of the committee. My name is Curry Tulumsis, and I'm a resident of North Providence. I'm testifying in favor of House Bill 5138. We've all normalized a disposable lifestyle. We buy food from a grocery store or restaurant and just expect to get a disposable bag or container to hold our food. We bring everything home, then throw all that packaging away. The system is flawed and causes extra expense to the consumer, the business owner, and especially the environment. This system is not sustainable. Polystyrene, however, is a particular problem we have. It is toxic from start to finish. Once it's made, it never truly leaves our world. It's of a limited and shrinking market. We need to and can provide other affordable and truly sustainable products in its place. We need to also be open to ideas like bring your own container, both for leftovers and for takeout from a restaurant. We need to start innovating. To continue to have a hospitable world, we must make collective behavior changes, and helpful bills like this will really be a good start. Even Dunkin' Donuts has passed, and stopped using polystyrene, so that's pretty huge. So let's stop waiting on other states to pass legislation. It'd be great to have Rhode Island be a leader in something like this. Thank you so much. I hope you pass this bill, and thanks for being patient with getting me on to testify.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Curie? Hearing none, or seeing none, this will conclude the hearing on House Bill H5138, and I will return the gavel to Chairman Bennett.
Thank you, Vice Chairman.